Hello, and welcome back to the Clubhouse. We're here today with Lana Nelson, the author of The Food Codes, Intuitive Eating for Every Body. And Lana shatters the stereotype of a food intuitive. She began her life's work in healthy eating over 3 decades ago, long before it was fashionable, and has developed one of the easiest techniques on the planet to help anyone discover what foods are best for you. And I will tell you that I've already been using one of her little tricks that we talked about before this episode, so I can't wait for her to share it with all of you. So, Lana, you've been warned that the first question is always the same, and that is, in our group, we talk about our food and lifestyle choices as kale or kryptonite. So kale being something that's super nourishing and really good for us, and kryptonite being something that sometimes sneaks into our lives that maybe isn't that good for us. So tell us, what's your kale?
My kale actually is what I found is my kale the last couple of years, especially in wintertime, has actually been good chocolate.
Yes.
Okay, a very good chocolate. I've never been a chocoholic or anything like that. My mother was. I didn't get it through the genes. Both of my sisters did. But I have recently found, and I think it's needing some type of a good fat from chocolate, and a good chocolate. There's my daughter brings chocolate from Peru. It's very pure. It has a fabulous flavor. And so I would have to say, I don't know why, but Peruvian chocolate.
Well, very specific, very niche. So yes, and I've also heard that very often for women in particular, chocolate has a lot of magnesium in it, and so sometimes when our bodies are wanting magnesium, that could also be it. So yeah,
Definitely.
maybe it's the fat, maybe it's just the fact that it's chocolate. So how about your kryptonite? What's your kryptonite?
My kryptonite. Okay, so possibly once in a while it's soda pop. Okay, looking for a fizzy, something fun from childhood or whatever, and it could be soda pop occasionally.
Interesting. Nobody said that one yet. That's good. Excellent. All right. So you have a very interesting background, and I want you to tell us if what you would like to from that story about how you came to do and what it is exactly.
Well, how I came to do what I'm doing now, I actually many, many years ago owned a dental lab, and that was my profession. I loved the health industry. I owned a dental lab, and one morning on delivering a set of dentures to a prosthodontist, I was rear-ended by a semi-truck. And fast forward that a few years, I was in my small delivery car. The traffic had slowed down in front of me due to an auto accident, and the semi truck behind me just was not paying attention to me, and bam. So I had head and neck injuries, back injuries, and so on, which sent me to the hospital, and then 10 years of chronic pain and with headaches and just chronic pain from the bottom of my feet to the top of my head. And I'm looking for relief from that. I didn't do well with drugs, and basically, drugs just drugged me out. And so I wasn't able to function well, and they were just painkillers as it was. So one of my neurologists told me, he said, Lana, I think you should see a chiropractor associated with this neck and head pain that you have. And so I went, oh, well, my mom saw a chiropractor when I was a girl. So I did. I started looking into natural health at that time. Now, you got to understand, back then, natural things were not in the forefront of news like they are now. Yoga was woo-woo.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
yoga was not done. You were kind of nutty if you did yoga or even thought about that. But I started looking at alternative methods. I found a naturopathic doctor. I found a chiropractor who helped me. And so I started really looking at food. I had been very much into herbs and nutrition. And so I started looking at much food and herbs and nutrition. I juiced, and juicing was not good back in those days. It
You're
was
just way ahead of the curve.
Well, when you are in, you have people say, oh, I would do anything to get out of this pain. Well, I did. I searched and searched, and I was doing anything. I tried some really weird things that even today are considered weird, and we won't talk about those things.
Oh, wait, that
But
might be really interesting. No, just kidding.
no, that really, really use when you're a seeker. But I found that food helped me. Juicing helped, but you do not ever want to juice a whole head of cabbage and then drink it down, boom, a humongous glass of it.
Tummy
You
trouble?
will, it's like a geyser, okay?
Oh
It's
my
not a fun
gosh.
thing. But anyway, back to natural medicine, and I was seeing a chiropractor, and my head had been kind of frozen in this position and neck and so on, and I was getting range of motion back. So I said to a friend of mine one day, and I was at that point in time, I was a single mom. I had 6 little kids, and there's a whole nother backstory to that. But anyhow, the single mom with 6 kids, and I said to my friend one day, I should marry a chiropractor. I'm seeing one 3 times a week, and we giggled as girls do. But what you say, what you think comes back to you. I was searching, mind you, for this way to get out of this horrendous pain I was in. And I get set up on a blind date with a chiropractor who specialized in what I'd been diagnosed with fibromyalgia and, told, well, there's no cure for that. Just, you learn how to manage the pain, etc. Well, literally 2 weeks after I met this his name was Dr. Bruce Nelson. 2 weeks after I met him on this blind date, we went to a dance at the high school. He was from another town, and his cousin set me up. We actually found out that we had people trying to get us together for 5 years. 5 years. And these other people, he would go this way and I would go that way, and we never met up until this perfect time. And so
Because you would
finding
have been
out,
ready for him 5 years before that.
yeah, he might have seemed really a little too weird at that
Yeah,
time with
exactly.
natural medicine. But using his method of a chiropractic and what we call these days natural medicine, in 2 weeks, literally 2 weeks, I was free from pain. I had full range of motion of my head, neck, and shoulders, and I was out of pain. And so fast forward that about a year, we married, we joined
Got to
2
keep him in the
families.
family.
We did. We joined, they called us the Brady Bunch times 2. He adopted my 6 kids. We made, so together we have 12 kids, and we have a whole passel of grandkids right now and 2 great grandchildren.
And you don't even look old enough to have grandchildren. That's incredible. Whatever that medicine is, it's working.
Yes, indeed. He had, we'll talk more about his method as well, but totally, totally natural and fabulous.
Yeah.
And so how I got to where I am now with food is I eventually, I kept my dental lab, my dental practice for about 6 years, and then was so enthralled with Bruce in his chiropractic practice and he helped so many people with chronic pain and ailments. And with his method, he did applied kinesiology, muscle testing, and would find the source or the root cause of the problem. And then with his techniques, help people totally get out of pain. And I said to him, we need to find out how to help people with food. Food is the missing link, I think. You're doing really so fabulous with all this, but I started actually using his method of muscle testing to test what my best foods were. And then I developed a program where I tested each one of his patients, or our patients at that time, with what are your best healing foods and what foods to stay away from. And so that is how I actually developed the food codes, what I call it now. But I did food plans for hundreds and hundreds of people, finding out
Wow.
what their best foods were.
That's great. And I was thinking as you were talking that I think for a lot of people, maybe not to the extent that you went to, but for a lot of people, chiropractors can be sort of that gateway to more natural healing. It's almost like they're almost conventional medicine, but they're really not. So they play this sort of gateway role where when you get involved with a chiropractor, very often they have connections to the alternative healing modalities that regular MDs do not. And I think
Yes,
it's a
well,
really great gateway.
and it was a neurologist who suggested.
Yeah.
One of my neurologists said, I think you should see a chiropractor. So, and that was, he was a little ahead of his time now. So,
Yeah. Oh, that's a great story. So everybody go out and find a chiropractor and marry them. May you be as lucky as Lana.
may you be as lucky because he healed my body and he healed my heart as well. So,
Yes. Yeah. And you probably know a lot about Louise Hay. I'm so curious to know, I'm sure Louise Hay would have a lot to say about your healing at that point.
yeah, I'm sure. I have
So,
her book here somewhere.
yes, I refer to it regularly. So I'm wondering, you've worked with a lot of people, obviously, and you have this great book, which I've read, and I would love you to comment a little bit about, based on your work with women over 40, because that's who's in our clubhouse, what is what do you notice are some commonalities that we come to you for or with?
Very good question. What that is we have been used to dieting. We've grown up dieting. Our mothers grew up dieting. Our grandmothers kind of got our mothers into it, and so forth. But so what I find a huge commonality is we look back at the things that have worked for us in the past. The diet, so to speak, whether no matter what it is, what worked for us in the past. And I'm not going to put names on anything because something might have worked for you in the past. And so now we are looking back at those things going, okay, well, this is how I kept in shape back then in my 20s or my 30s. And this is the diet I always used, but it's not working for me right now.
I'm so glad you
It's
bring this
not
up.
working for me right now.
Yes.
What's wrong with me? And it's the what's wrong with me. So we start putting ourselves down. We start beating ourselves up and looking at what's wrong with me. And it's not what's wrong with me. It's what's right with me right now and what I need right now. And that's what I teach you how to discover.
I love that, and I know that you've done some reading of my blog and some writing that I've done, and
Yes.
you'll probably know that used to is one of my big trigger words. Right after should, the number one is should. If I hear
Yes.
you say should, I'm like, check yourself. But also used to, and I love the way you said that, because really what I work with women on specifically is, let's find what's right for you right now. So stop comparing yourself to
Exactly.
other people and stop comparing yourself to you in the past. So
Yes, because we listen to, well, and stop listening to expert advice. There's so much good expert advice out there, but if you follow any of the experts, so to speak, you'll find out that those experts, when you were younger, were telling you to not do this or to always do that. And whether it be, to stay away from fat, and now those experts are saying, oh, you really need a lot of good fats in your diet. So those experts that we followed, that have been gurus, are changing their advice
yeah.
and so on. So you are your own best advisor, and you can learn how to do that, how to
Yeah,
be your
you are
best
the
advisor.
expert on you, right?
Yes,
Yeah. Oh, I
yes.
love that. And so, as an intuitive nutritionist, what about working with women in this stage of life, over 40, hitting perimenopause, really a point in life, I think, where we do start looking at, oh, why should I listen to anybody else? It's an awareness that doesn't always come so quickly, but when it does come, it's really interesting to see what women do with it. So, what about working with women in this age group astonishes, challenges, excites, disturbs you or them and them?
What I love it. Here we've come through life insecure. Here we have come through looking at everyone else, being told that we should
Yeah.
be a certain shape, or a certain size and whatnot. And we have gained a lot of experience by our age, by our time, that we can draw on. And we can look back and go, I have grown stronger through that. And I am now a much stronger, more secure woman, hopefully. Okay. And if not, it's time for us to do that. It's time. There's so many women of this age seeking out now how I can gain my strength. And, with what you are doing and how you are teaching women, oh my gosh, empowerment. So we're becoming more empowered. And there are a lot of us on this planet. Okay, there are a lot of us. So we have a wonderful sisterhood. And so feeling more empowered and looking for the sources of gaining what's good for me right now in every aspect of our life, whether it be seeking out a new adventure with a partner, or seeking out adventures as now being a grandmother and how we're going to adjust to that status, or a new business. There are a bunch of us that are in new, more empowering work relationships and excitement. So there's a lot of excitement now and a lot to look forward to. A lot.
Yay, I love that attitude. More of that, please. So I want you to get a little bit into what you talked about in your book. And I will say that the one specific trick that I learned from you about the sway test has just been so perfect. I have used it with food. I've used it with clients to say, if you're trying to make a decision about something, what does it feel like? So let's talk about that, but also anything else you want to talk about from the book. Don't give it all away though, because I want people to go buy the book.
Well, there's a lot in there, so we don't have enough time, but one of the keys to my book, The Food Codes, Intuitive Eating for Everyone, everybody, is that you have intuition. Now, how I found this out with myself was many years ago when, like I said, yoga was weird, and meditation, I was just hearing about meditation, and that sounded kind of interesting to me. There was a decision, a decision that I needed to make, and I was praying about it, I was thinking about it, and meditating one day. Okay, I'm just going to think about this, and this is meditation. Okay, this is what I've heard is meditation. So I'm sitting there thinking, and all of a sudden, I'm not calling it a vision, but figures popped up into my mind. And it was almost like a reader board with some words going across it. That was like an answer to my meditation. And I just was like, wow, what was that? I'd never experienced that before. Because people say, well, have you always been intuitive? And I never thought I was. Okay. What I have learned with intuition is we all are intuitive. Okay. Every one of us has a great deal. We are all intuitive. Is one really super simple method that everyone can do. And if you think about this weight test, if you'd like to do that, I can talk about it. Okay.
Yes.
So if you think about something really good in your life, think about something really, so just if you are driving right now and listening to this, of course, do not do this. But when you get into a quiet place, or you can stand or you can sit, and this is how to totally and easily tap into your intuition right now, eyes open or eyes closed. So you don't have to go into a deep meditation to tap into your intuition. You don't have to do like I did and sit for an hour and think about it. No, you can do it in the snap of a fingers. So tapping into your intuition, kind of take a deep breath and think of something happy and good. Like I said, eyes open or eyes closed, standing or sitting. Now, if you're sitting, just scoot more to the edge of a chair, but it might be a little easier at first to stand. But you can think of something that is very loving, your wonderful puppy, a dog, a kitty, a sweet kiss. And just imagine that as you're thinking of this, and this is a yes, a yes, a yes, your body starts to move toward that. You intuitively will move toward something that is really loving, kind, and good. And so something that feels just really, really yummy. So back to square one, just standing upright again. And you can practice this, but it's just this simple. So think about something that's really kind of yuck, a food that you don't like. Someone said something bad to you. Opening up a jar of something rotten in the fridge, giving it a sniff, and boom, you just immediately sway backward from that. Okay, now let's just go back to that loving thought and get yourself back into that loving, loving thought again. Just a little, pat on the cheek, someone saying, I love you. So swaying forward. So the sway test is really just as easy. You can use it to test a food. You can actually hold or think. You don't have to touch or hold anything. You can think about, let's think about grapes, okay? Are grapes a really good food for me right now? And just imagine grapes, etc. And you will sway toward them if it's a good food for you at this time, or you'll sway backward a little bit from them if grapes are not, as an example, a good food for you at this time. So you can think a thought, and you don't want to use this or muscle testing or anything I have outlined in the book. There are different types of muscle testing, which I'll touch on right now, but the sway test is like the first one. But with that type of an intuition of making large decisions in your life, you really want to put those to your prayer bones and to really thinking about it and weighing out. So muscle testing and the sway test or other methods, sometimes it's called kinesiology, are really, really great for certain things like food, or does my plant need extra water or not enough water? You'd sway it back, etc. So an answer, and the key is asking a yes or a no question. Your brain, what you're doing is accessing your subconscious brain, your subconscious mind. It's like a lie detector test or a lie detector, a binary computer, which will give you a yes answer swaying towards something good, a no answer swaying away from. So that's
one of the keys would really be not making the question complex, not should I eat
very
this
simple.
or should I eat this? It's like, should I eat this? And then the next question is, should I eat this? And then
and you might for food at this time is this good for me? And it might be good for you at some point in time, but is this good for me now? Is this good for me at this time?
Oh, I love that.
So and that's either a yes or a no. It's like, well, should I eat this before I go for a run? And that could be a yes or no question too, but not complex questions. And in my book, The Food Codes, I go into this in great detail. Now, there are other methods of muscle testing where you can use a strong muscle like a finger, holding your arm, an arm or a finger or something. And I give you many methods like that are super duper simple. But the sway test is probably the one that works the best at first.
Yeah, I love that one. I've used it a lot.
So does that answer the question?
That does answer my question.
And then when it comes to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Nope,
okay.
That was it.
All right. Well, when it comes to what was I going to say? Food. So you can find out, you can actually, I give you a wonderful list of probably 12, 14 pages of kinds of foods that you can download, or it's fillable, so you don't even have to think, oh gosh, what foods do I, what foods are out there? So I give you a list of that. But then you can find out how to build, basically, like make your own recipes. So how to cook and so on easily with your good foods. But foods are our first relationship. You talk about relationships and our relationship with ourself. Food was our first relationship long as we were being formed in our mother's womb. And then as, we have learned, we've unlearned our first relationship, if you will.
Yeah.
We've unlearned our first relationship with food, which was very inquisitive. It was playful. It was, we like this or we don't. And we've unlearned that because of all the shoulds that people have told us over way too many years.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I would add that what I say very often is that other things in our lives, as we grow, as we become adults, other things in our lives really easily leak into that first relationship and sort of push
Yes.
it aside. Yeah. Yeah. And affect it in ways that we don't really expect.
Yes. It's kind of, it's very sneaky.
It is very sneaky. I know.
It's very sneaky.
So what else would you like to share about what's in your book or in your
Let's
work in
see.
general?
Well, in my book, I give you, there are more things that we can test. For instance, people have a lot of digestive issues these days. We don't digest well. So speaking of energy and energy medicine, I actually give you some really excellent ways of how to improve your digestion. Probably the biggest um, pharmaceutical out there is for digestive problems, whether it's over the counter or whether it is prescription. So testing and understanding and finding out what those foods are best for you at this time, right now, at this stage in life, for whether, and you can actually use this to test, well, I'm starting a new job, and are there any foods that are going to give me the best energy? Or I really would like to, I've got this issue or that issue, be it a medical issue, or I'm just tired lately. What are my best foods right now for gaining this? Or I'm really going to do a marathon. I have one of my clients and good friends is in her 60s, and she's run marathons. She's gotten herself in wonderful, and I mentioned her and how she has done as one of my examples in the book. And so she tests her best foods for the next marathon she's running or whatever she's doing. So you can.
Yeah, I love the real person examples in the book. Those are great.
Yes, because they're people, they're families. It's how you can use this with a family. How you can do it with a large group. How you can, so pretty simple, and giving you some digestive and how to know when you're full, how to know, because we lose that, as I was talking, from the time where babies, you can't overfeed a baby. They're going to spit it back out to you. You can't give them something they don't like. And you'll find using some of my techniques and methods, and there are foods really I don't like. I thought I liked everything. No, my body doesn't want that. My body doesn't like it at this time. And so I give you a lot of really wonderful methods to digest and to feel better in your skin and to get that relationship back that we had as a young child, that inquisitiveness and so on.
Yeah, I'm wondering, you brought up something that's of great interest to a lot of women in their 40s, I think, which is, trying to feed a family, and what happens when we are on this journey and trying to find what is right for us right now. And if we have to feed a bunch of other people, what is your advice for that?
All right, so I'm on a particular diet. Here you often see this. Okay, I'm sorry, mom's on a diet.
Yes.
Or we're on a diet. Oh, we're all going to starve now.
Yes, exactly. Of course, short of like having to cook 2 meals for every meal, what are our options?
Well, here's a couple good examples. Well, we're so making a soup or a stew, for instance, and some of my best foods are a little different than my spouse's or my children's best foods. So you can actually make, let's say, the base for a soup or stew, and then have additives. Have just a little bowl of this food or that food. For instance, one needs a different type of protein. One might need some garbanzo beans, and I don't like garbanzo beans in my soup, or I like chicken instead, or whatever. And so you can actually have soup or stew and then have additives to that.
I
And
love that advice. Yes, that's
yeah,
something I talk about with people that work on meal planning a lot. I call it belly up to the bar. Think of all the things that you could serve as a bar: taco bar, nacho bar,
perfect.
build your own bowl.
Yes, and small bowls of so the bar is perfect. Baked potatoes, okay. You don't baked potatoes are not your best food for you right now. Maybe a yellow, and here's interesting, okay? Maybe a sweet potato is better, maybe a yellow potato is better, maybe a red potato. They have different nutrients to different
Mm,
foods like that. And so you can find out what your best is, but let's say your best food would be a yellow potato. Mine is a sweet potato. So easy to cook them both at the same time, a little different with cooking, but then you can have additives. You can have any types of vegetables, any types of, condiments and
yeah.
different things. That is amazing. And it's easy to do. And I have actually some very cool charts in the book that you can draw from that give you all that. You don't have to come up with these ideas
Yes, they're
yourself.
great. They're
Like,
like flow charts. Pick one, choose your own adventure.
yes, and different. So you can make a soup or a stew, the basis, just as an instance. And then, okay, well, let's make this Italian. And I give you the ingredients that are like the spices and the different, how to make it Italian, or how to make it French, or how to make it, Mexican or Italian, etc. So
Yeah,
I give
no,
you a lot of
that's a great,
templates
great section.
for
Template.
cooking, and tons of ideas with most foods, and how to feed a family or how to feed yourself. And then literally, if you've never boiled water before, a lot of people have never really cooked before, I give you the simplest templates on how to do that, and how to use simple foods to make them more nutritious, like easily sprouting your beans and legumes, and you name it. How to cook with whole best foods. We're used to, a lot of people have grown up buying the box foods or going through the drive-through, but I teach you how to easily use whole foods, whole nutritious foods, and make them delicious.
Yes, I love all those templates, and I'm glad you touched on the spices and herbs, because that's one thing that my sort of cooking clients are always asking, which is, I love Mexican. How would I make Mexican other than, buying the taco seasoning? And
Mhm.
so it's really great to have that list of sort of flavor profiles that say, oh, you want Greek? Here's Greek spices and herbs, and here are the Mediterranean ones, and here are the
Yes.
Mexican ones, and the
And
Thai
it's
ones.
simple. It's very simple. You don't need to follow a recipe per se, because it's like, oh my gosh, well, I have that one, but I don't have this one, and I've never heard of that one before.
Yes.
So easily substituting, and then it teaches you how to cook like our grandmothers cooked, back with whole foods and using what you have on hand as well,
Mm.
and teaching you how to have on hand the basics and then make pretty much anything from those.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great book. So we're going to definitely have a link for that in the notes that go along with this interview, and I highly recommend it. It's a quick read, and it's super useful. It's on my bookshelf, and I pull it down often. So tell us a little bit, like an intuitive nutritionist. That's not something that there are a lot of out there. So maybe if we were just talk more about muscle testing. If someone were to go and look for muscle testing, what would be your recommendations of, oh, this is probably a good practitioner? And what would be your red flags, like, oh, if that's what they're doing with this, maybe not there.
Well, asking muscle testing is pretty straightforward with a lot of practitioners are using it these days. Neurologists use it. It has been used for, for 40, 50, 60 years, many, many years. But asking, there are nutritionists out there who will test you for what type of nutrition that you need. You yourself actually can look on online or at a health food store with the sway test. You can either look at something or you can say, am I needing some extra vitamin C right now? And do I need a supplement? Do I need to supplement it? So that would be a question to use also. Do I need a supplement for this? Or do I simply need, high vitamin C foods? And you can do a little Google search. What are your highest vitamin C foods? It's not always an orange.
Yeah.
And so for finding someone, there are, just ask them, do you do muscle testing? Do you do kinesiology? Because if you're looking for instance, a chiropractor that does it, it's very wonderful because like with my husband, when he, as a chiropractor, he could use his muscle testing and he would test the person themselves by holding their arm out to the side. And that is one form of muscle testing. Now, if they had a problem with their shoulder or weren't able to do that, then he used himself as a proxy, for instance. He used himself to test. So we can do that as well, for instance, to test our child, maybe a baby, and test ourselves with the sway test, or using one of the muscle testing methods that I give you pictures and directions of exactly how to simply like test yourself for a child, for another person, or your pet even. You can use this very nicely for our fur babies.
Yes.
to test them. So does that answer your question?
That does answer the question. I was just curious whether, as you think about people who are out there doing muscle testing, are there any sort of red flags that pop up for you? Like, oh, that person may not be using it
fortune
correctly.
telling is,
Yeah.
really testing, the future or like fortune telling or something like that. We always want to be kind of like in the here and now. But, a red flag would be someone who's going to test you and, ask questions that, do I have a certain disease? Your body doesn't recognize diseases, for instance. So not to test yourself. There are people that, the C word that is out there a lot. Do I have cancer? No, your body wouldn't recognize that. Your body would recognize, do I have an imbalance in an organ or a gland? So your body recognizes imbalances, but not certain words per se. And in working in the profession, the chiropractic profession, there were people that would come in with, oh gosh, I've been diagnosed with this and this and this, and then another person would say, oh yeah, and I've been diagnosed with that and that, but then I was told that I don't have that anymore, those word diagnoses. So yeah, to not used to diagnose unless you're a professional, but your body doesn't recognize diseases per se.
Interesting.
That would be a red flag.
That's really interesting.
Or telling you the future.
Okay. Great. Yeah, that's super helpful. Now, I know that not just during the pandemic, but at all times, you actually do most of your work online and virtually. So tell us, first of all, how to find your book. We'll, of course, put that in the notes, but tell us where to find your book. Tell us where to find you, how to connect with you, and what sort of offerings you have for us.
Well, The Food Codes, CODES, thefoodcodes.com. I mentioned a little earlier, I have I have a wonderful thing called the 30-second gut flush. If you're interested in a slimmer, trimmer waistline, or if you have digestive issues, etc., it works on animals, it works on people. You can get that free. It's a wonderful video there. You can get that free. It's just kind of like click up at the free stuff on the top. Also, you can get a list of my top 10 foods that I actually gleaned from hundreds and doing hundreds and hundreds of food testing for people. Now, these might be in your top 10, they might not, but you know, if you're questioning about, well, gosh, what were the top 10 foods for a lot of people, that is there as well. So thefoodcodes.com, and you can get my book through my website, or you can go to Amazon, The Food Codes, Intuitive Eating for Everybody, and you can get the book there. And I have a wonderful blog that talks a lot about muscle testing, and I have just done a series, I've recorded a series of how-to muscle testing techniques that I will be putting, so sign up for my blog, and I'm going to be putting a new technique via video out every week for several weeks now, teaching you how to do many types of muscle testing.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much. That's great. And I have to ask you, top one food that kept popping up in your list of 10?
Let's see. Of the top 10 foods, one of them surprisingly was tuna. Tuna.
Really?
One of them surprisingly was tuna. And cabbage worldwide. Cabbage tests good for so many people,
Mm.
and
Oh,
there's
that makes my Russian roots really happy.
yes, yes, and cabbage. Oh my gosh! So cabbage and also garbanzo beans.
Yes, I've heard that. Yeah,
Garbanzo beans as top of the three, and there are more in there. So
that's amazing. Okay, so go and download that list, people. Well, thank you so much, Lana, for being with us and explaining muscle testing and what it is to be an intuitive nutritionist. And I really urge people to buy the book. It's a great read. It's not difficult, and you'll get so much great information from it. So thank you for being with us.
thank you. It's been a delight, Lisa.